It's time for another episode of the VARguments and the shocking referee decisions from round 6. I promise you, this weekend probably had about 10 decisions if we were to go by every single thing that went wrong. But we've narrowed it down to the most controversial decisions that, caused shockwaves across social media and whatnot. And without wasting much time, Victor, let's start with Fulham. Fulham have actually been on the wrong end of several decisions this season. But the question here is, did they deserve a penalty after a strike from Josh King apparently hit Matt Cash's outstretched arm, as you can see in the picture showing on the screen?
I feel for Marco Silva more than pretty much any other manager this season because it has been an absolute horror show against Fulham. You can look at the game versus Chelsea. You can look at the game versus United. It has just been relentless against them. This one, I'm a little bit on the fence about, but I feel like maybe my empathy has just gone up a bit too much towards Fulham, and I feel like it should have been a pen. There is the argument that, okay, it wasn't that unnatural of a position for the arm. However, I would say yes, penalty.
Yeah, for me, I think looking at where his body is leaning towards and where his hand is at, it seems clear to me that this should be a penalty, in my opinion. This should be a penalty. This is in the box. His other arm should be somewhere tucked towards his body, so it's outstretched from his body. So I think
normally it would be rather pointing towards the ground a little bit, I suppose, but it's also about the moment of the slide that he's making of the block, so it was a little bit unfortunate in terms of Villa being in this predicament, because had he slid just a fraction of a second earlier, his arm would be pointing down and it would be a complete non-issue. Like this, I think Fulham do have, as you said as well, they do have a good shout for a pen here.
Yeah, exactly. Max, your take on this?
This one's quite hard to say, actually, because sometimes you also should mention that the shot was pretty close to the player itself as well, and sometimes it lets it slip, and this one was that, I suppose, but I'd say 70 to 30 that it's a penalty, so I would probably go with pen here.
Fair enough. And moving on to the Crystal Palace Liverpool game, VAR checked Salah for an alleged handball in the build-up to Liverpool's equalizer, and they said there was no evidence that Salah touched the ball. I mean, we can see in the image showing on our screen. So, Victor, was that a handball offense or not?
You're going to call me biased, I know. I'm going to say it's a good thing they let it stand. The reason I say this is I agree with what Max was saying in our group chat when we were talking about this. Had there been a chip in the ball, we would know for sure, And I absolutely agree with that. It's not like the Prem can't afford those bloody chips anyway. In this case, if they can't get a proper angle and the proper confirmation that it was handball, then you need to let it stand. Having said that, it does look really blatant. I'm going to say correct decision, though, letting it stand. Also because if you think about the context of the game, a draw would have been the correct result anyway. It was very much a game of two halves, and I think based on the complete performance, a 1-1 would have, it wouldn't have been an absolute sticking point for anyone. But strictly on this decision, okay, I agree with the decision, but get those goddamn chips in the ball already.
Honestly, I think this image is something that you would see Steph Curry in basketball and the likes. This is what you see them do. honestly, it's so ironic that this image looks very similar to the famous Hand of God image. Looks very similar to the famous Hand of God image, and it's not possible that a league that can spend billions of dollars would say they don't have an angle to confirm whether he hit his arm. It is pretty evident that he hit his arm on the way. The replays clearly showed it. Even watching it live, I saw that myself without the help of VAR. I saw that myself. So I'm stunned that this was allowed to stand. But yeah, maybe they felt like maybe the only thing I can see why they let it stand is because the ball did not change direction so much. I think that's the only logical reason. But to say the ball did not hit Salah's hand, I think it's wrong. That being said, it was a handball offense, and I think it should have the goal should have been ruled out. So, anyways, Max, your your opinion on that?
It just feels like that you saw what you wanted to see, actually, in this case at least, because there, even if there is a contact with the hand, it's minimum contact. And I personally watched like maybe 10 times, and I don't really see from any perspective that he played that ball. Even if he touched his hand, this is mostly the problem of league itself, that they still don't have these chips that we had 4 years ago already. And it performed huge, because we all remember, like, at least I remember as a Belgium national team fan, how Lukaku played his hand. Like, it was pretty little contact, and it shows like perfectly. So for me, it's a good decision to keep it on the good hand up for the league. So they definitely need this one.
Oof. Okay. Moving moving on to a game that was very busy for referee Jared Gillett. Arsenal saw a penalty overturned after Victor Gyökeres was apparently brought down by Nick Pope. The on-field decision was penalty, but VAR called the referee to have a look at the screen, and after much deliberation, the penalty was overturned, saying it was not a foul. Victor, penalty or not?
I absolutely sympathize with Saka here. This was a bullshit decision. If you need a minute or longer to make up your mind when you're watching replays from all angles and at all replay speeds, then it's not a clear and obvious error. And then if it's not a clear and obvious error, what the hell are VAR doing stepping in? So for this one, I would say it should have been a penalty. It should have stood. It's I know it would be harsh on Pope because he did make contact with the ball and then his leg can't just vanish. And that's absolutely true as well. I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but if a decision has been made on the pitch and then you need that long to analyze whether it was correct or not, then just let it stand.
Yeah. Yeah, just what I was going to say is what Victor already mentioned. VAR, especially for a penalty incident, should be for clear and obvious errors. There was nothing of such in this incident. I saw them taking so much time, probably to convince the referee on why he should overturn the penalty. I saw them taking so much time. And for people saying, oh, he touched the ball, weeks ago, Sanchez touched the ball as well, but he was still given a red card. The rules are the rules at the end of the day. It denied Gyökeres a scoring opportunity because he would have gone around him and he could have scored. So if you touch a player with your studs, if you go studs high, but your leg should touch the ball, are they saying you're not going to get carded because you hit the ball? It's ridiculous to me. This was a stonewall penalty. Even a blind man would have seen this. Shocking. Max, your take on this one?
Actually, when you were talking about Chelsea red card, I was thinking why it happened. And now I just realized the fact that, yes, the keeper played the ball, but then it touched Mbemo again, and it moved straight to the net. So after that, another contact from Mbemo, he is not playing the ball and he's just cutting him. So that red card is obvious. Here you see that Pope plays the ball, yeah, then he hits the Gyökeres and then he falls, but Gyökeres was never touching the ball again after the contact. So for me, yeah, I actually can agree with you that VR is probably not allowed to jump into it when you really need this a lot of time. But watching different leagues, sometimes I see like 5 minutes pause when VR is watching. Then they call the ref. He looks for 30 seconds and says, "What the hell are you talking about?" and keeps his decision. So yeah, sometimes it feels like VR is just letting the game stop and slide. But for me, actually, it's not a penalty. But I can agree with your opinion that VR is not allowed to join here.
Yeah, fair enough. If this was not a penalty, Max, I don't know what you call a penalty until maybe we use a sledgehammer.
If I may say so, though, there is a hint there of Gyökeres also trailing his leg, looking for the contact. So
Of course,
it's not.
he was faster than him already, so it's
No, no,
it.
no. I mean, after Pope made contact with the ball, Gyökeres realized in that split second what's happening, and he trailed his leg. He looked for that contact. It was because there was no malevolence from Pope to just go out and take him out completely. This was he looked to play the ball. What I'm trying to say is that it's not like Gyökeres is the absolute innocent maiden here who should have been given the penalty but wasn't. That's what all I'm trying to say.
Fair enough, but I think that's normal striker instinct. Like you get yourself
Yeah.
in that position and get the keeper to commit, so you go down in the box and well. Anyways, moving on to another incident in the same game. In fact, this game could have seen 5 different penalties if if VAR were probably serious. But Gabriel for Arsenal also appeared to handle the ball in the box after a shot from Elanga. Victor, VAR also checked this and said there was no reason for them to give a penalty. But in your own opinion, penalty or not, after the image showing on the screen?
I mean, I'm gonna say this once, and it's gonna sound a bit crap, but I'm genuinely glad a pen wasn't given here. I say correct decision, and the reason for that is because if we start giving penalties for these pinball situations, the game's completely gone. This was a case of Elanga shot, Gabriel blocked, it hit Elanga again without him knowing anything about it, and then it hit Gabriel in the arm. Sure, the arm wasn't exactly in a natural position for that passage of play, but at the same time, you give this pen, you might as well retire as a ref. I would say no pen.
Yeah. I was going to the same thing. I think I already said that in the group chat with Max that at first glance it looks like a pen because Gabriel's hand is in a very, very unnatural position. But when it showed again, it there was a deflection, and as per the rules are the rules. When the ball is deflected, especially from close proximity, you can't give a penalty for that. So the rules are the rules, unfortunately. But looking at this, seeing how his arm is in an unnatural position, it looks like a pen. But if we are to follow the rules, at least this is
Yeah,
not a penalty.
it's
So,
it's all about what happened in the half second before this screenshot, because
yeah, exactly.
the back and forth that gets lost in translation, so to speak, and
Yeah, true.
that's what makes this the correct decision to not give the penalty.
Fair enough. But let's see what Supermarket has to say about this one.
Yeah, actually, it's obvious that after the deflection, it's never called a handball. Even if you just put your hand in front of you and just kick into it, it's never a penalty. So obviously this one is correct. But I was also going to mention that if you're gonna give penalties for this type of moments, you can look into corners. And I do remember that in one game, maybe it was even this game, in the corner, like players were holding each other, and then the ball comes into it, and it touches first hand, second, third hand. It's just strange to give it. So like, if you going to give penalty for handball, it should be obvious. And I would probably say that in that game we had that handball in the box, but it wasn't awarded as a penalty. So this one is kind of equity, at least for the teams, that if you are not taking a penalty here and you didn't have penalty there, so it's a 1-1, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. But on that note, we'll ask our viewers to join us in the conversation, especially for the Salah handball, where there seems to be some, disparity in opinions. Was that a handball offense by Salah or not in the Liverpool box? Tell us what you think in the comment section below, because we'll be waiting to hear from you. And also, did Fulham deserve a penalty? Should VAR have interfered in Victor Gyökeres' penalty? And was Gabriel lucky or not to have escaped conceding a penalty for Arsenal? We want to hear from you in the comment section, and we'll be sure to leave a response.